Welcome to Sound Advice, an hour dedicated to the world of business, including news, local updates, interesting interviews, and more. The opinions expressed on the following program are not necessarily those of the staff, management, or advertisers of this station.
Hi, I'm Susan Michaels.
And I'm Rick O'Brien, and this is Sound Advice.
Today we're talking with Jeff Steele, President, and Daniel French, Systems Engineer with CMIT Solutions of Seattle. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank
Good
you.
to be here.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah. So first of all, tell us about CMIT Solutions. What is the company all about, and how long has it been around?
Sure. So CMIT Solutions stands for Completely Managed IT Solutions. And it's a company based out of Austin, Texas, which has been around since 1996. So we've been in business for about 19 years. Mm-hmm. It's an organization which is nationwide, and we actually got some offices in Canada, so it's basically North American based. And does IT support for small and medium-sized companies. So IT consulting, help desk services, support. Projects, yeah, all those types of things. We also have, because we're nationwide in nature, we've got about 800 technicians and consultants across the country. Wow. So we bring a tremendous amount of depth and expertise to
So if it's something that you haven't experienced, if something comes up with some odd thing, there's probably somebody, hey, you guys, have you ever run across this?
That's exactly right.
Okay.
In fact, I mean, that's one of the things which has been the most helpful for us. We've got 7 offices in the Puget Sound area, besides our office. So if there's a problem that we have not seen before, we've got the local group that we can pass it around, and we've got the national group. And honestly, there's been nothing in the time that we've been doing this that has not been able to be solved by passing it around the national group.
Wow, that's very cool. A lot of support there.
Absolutely.
So how long have you been in Seattle?
So CMIT Solutions of Seattle, which is my company, we started just in August of last year. Oh. So we're reasonably new. As I said, we're one of 7 businesses in the Puget Sound area, and many of the other businesses have been around for quite some time. So the Everett business, the Bellevue business are quite mature. We've got businesses in Bellingham, Olympia, and Tacoma, Bothell as well. And so while we're a new business, we've got a lot of good industry expertise here in this area, and a lot of good brand awareness with CMIT because it's been around in the Puget Sound area for so long.
Okay. So you're coming up on your 1-year birthday.
Absolutely.
Well, very good.
Nice.
Congratulations.
We're excited, yes.
Yeah. So, Jeff, as president of CMIT Solutions of Seattle, what is your main role? And then tell us a little bit about how you got to where you are today, kind of some personal history.
Sure. So my main role is getting the word out. We're a new business, and people need to understand who we are. So I do a lot of work on marketing and promotion. We've got a tremendous number of marketing campaigns that we run with the assistance of the home office. So I'm constantly out there trying to get the word out that we exist, talking to people about the services that we provide, do a lot of networking groups and things like that to make sure that everyone's aware of what's going on. How did I get into the business is an interesting thing. I mean, I started in IT, or what we called at the time data processing, way back when I was in high school and college, and I was a computer operator, back when computers took up rooms full of raised floors and air conditioning and everything else like that. A room about twice the size of this studio would
be the computer.
Well, there would be the computer, and that whole room would have 224K. So my phone has how many gigabits of memory now? And that machine had 224K. So I learned as a computer operator, and then I kind of progressed and became a little bit more of a techie. I taught myself COBOL programming, and I began to become a programmer. I did a lot of technical stuff, worked for the University of Colorado for a while, and as a programmer and such. And then I moved into the world of vendors, and from there I kind of moved into the world of digital delivery and digital media. And for the last 25 years or so, I've worked for companies like Microsoft and Amazon and Fox doing digital media. I was a key member of the Kindle team, helping launch the Kindle. When I worked for Microsoft, the last role that I held there was running the MSN business. I was the regional director for MSN in the South Pacific, so I was fortunate enough to work for Microsoft and live and work in Australia. So that was an interesting time. So that's a little bit of my background.
So what motivated you to start off with this company?
Yeah, that's a great question. I got laid off about a year and a half ago.
That's always a motivation, then, isn't it?
It's a great motivator, isn't it? And I was looking for things to do, and the last job that I had been able to land, it took almost a year to find that job. And now I was, 2 years older and was looking at the prospect of it taking a significantly longer period of time to land something. And I had started my own business with my partner, Dan. We had started a luxury hotel in Queenstown, New Zealand, many, many years ago when we lived in the South Pacific. And we had a taste of what it was like to run your own business. We enjoyed running our own business. And so we thought to ourselves, what can we do? How can we start our own business and get going and do that here in this particular world that we're living in now? And CMIT is a franchise. We own the Seattle franchise. So we were actually working with a franchise broker, and the broker showed us a bunch of different concepts, and we followed several of the concepts quite far. But ultimately, we decided that CMIT is what we wanted to do. Part of the reason for that was my background in technology. Part of the reason for it was that we would be helping small businesses. And having run small businesses before, I remember very well how I really depended upon all of the IT assistance that I had when we were trying to set up the hotel. And so we wanted to be able to help people and do so in a fashion that allowed us to kind of move forward in our own world. At the time we were making this decision, we lived in L.A. We had moved from Seattle to L.A. about 6 years ago, and we'd spent 6 years trying to figure out a way to get back to Seattle. And so now we had the perfect opportunity to start our own business, get back to Seattle, and so it made perfect sense to start the business up here in Seattle.
Okay, so coming back to Seattle and starting the business was one move.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Oh, what an exciting thing, huh?
We had a great time, yes.
So, Daniel, you are a systems engineer.
That's correct.
So what is your part in this whole picture? And how did you get to this point in your life?
Well, my story is not nearly as interesting as Jeff's, but we'll try and jazz it up a little bit. I am the primary supervisor of technical operations for CMIT Seattle. I'm also the primary support resource. I work a lot with the clients, providing assistance to them, dealing with project supervision, network design. We just got through migrating one client to Office 365 this past weekend, and I'll be doing some server migrations for other clients in the next couple of weeks. So staying busy helping design the architecture and implement new systems for folks. As far as how I got here, I'm actually originally from a small town in southwest Missouri called Aurora. And I grew up working in my parents' restaurant there. And in my free time, I worked with our Packard Bell 486 DX2 computer.
Yes.
Learning the basics of troubleshooting and DOS and Windows 3.11 and all sorts of other fun things. So when I graduated from college, I started working in a more professional capacity in IT support and consulting, and I did that for the past 10 years or so. Moved to Seattle in late 2011 and worked for a variety of other companies in the area before coming to work for Jeff and his partner Dan. So.
We were very pleased to have him.
So when we're talking about managed services, tell us what we're talking about.
Right. So we are many things, and we're also a managed services provider. And managed services in this particular instance means that we're providing proactive monitoring and maintenance on a client's computer systems. So we put an agent on the computer. That agent does many things. It provides malware support. It provides antivirus support. We provide anti-spam support. It gives us the ability to remotely manage the computer. We can help people. So if there's a problem, we can actually log onto the computer while the user is sitting there. We can watch what they're doing. We can see the errors that they're seeing. We also have a significant number of statistics about the computer and how things have been running on that computer. The statistics that CompTIA, who's an industry group, actually talks about are machines that are proactively monitored and maintained break down about half as much as computers that are not monitored and maintained. And when those computers do break, it takes half as long to fix them. So one of the things that managed services and proactive monitoring and maintenance brings to a client is much more uptime, which translates to more productivity for their users, which translates to a better bottom line for everybody.
That's right.
If I can jump in and comment a little bit, I find that managed services, working in a variety of consulting firms and for a variety of clients, managed services lets people free up their time to worry about their own individual business, as opposed to trying to say, oh crap, are my computers working, or do I have viruses, or am I backed up? Managed services gives you the ability to say, look, we have a trusted IT partner that takes care of all those things for us, and that's what we try and do and be and provide for our clients.
Do you ever run into, I just was thinking as you were talking, there are sometimes businesses, they have proprietary information. They have some things that they want to keep to themselves. They say, well, we don't want you in this part. How do you work around some things like that?
Right. So we deal with a lot of medical providers, so we are constantly dealing with HIPAA compliance.
Yes.
We also deal with PCI compliance, payment card industry, and FINRA compliance, which is in the finance industry. So we're experts at how to deal with sensitive data. We've got contracts with our clients which talk about how we can access that data, what we can do with it. We are certainly, as part of the trusted IT partners that Daniel talked about, that we provide for our clients, we're constantly talking to them about best practices in terms of how to store data, how to protect data, how to back data up, business continuity services. HIPAA compliance is an example. And one of the things that was caught by either, I forget which, it was Primera or Anthem, but HIPAA data has to be encrypted both in transit and at rest. And so the problem was that whenever they were transmitting something, it was encrypted, but it was not encrypted when it was sitting at rest.
And at rest also, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. And so those are things that we make sure that we have in place for all of our medical clients, as well as anybody who deals in the medical industry. So radiologists and pharmacists and lawyers who have medical practices of their own, not of their own, excuse me, their clients, et cetera. So we take care of all that stuff for them.
Okay.
And in terms of when clients have sensitive data that they may not want us looking at, too, that's definitely something that's configurable. One of the great things about a centralized, managed, what we call a domain-based network, is the ability to set specific permissions. So there have been a number of times when I've worked with clients who've said, oh, well, financial or HR information, we want limited to such and such, and we'd prefer you guys not be able to get into it.
Okay.
And we say, all right, well, we'll just limit it to these specific people and these specific accounts.
So you can manage something that's just kind of in this file that's zipped up.
Right. Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. It's very compartmentalized and very configurable.
So somebody wanting someone possibly to manage, but well, I don't want someone snooping around all this. You can handle that.
Absolutely.
Very good.
Okay. So you do the managed services. What other IT stuff do you guys do?
Well, one of the big things that we provide with managed services, we're looking after computers and we're making people more productive. And that's a really important thing to have happen. But if there's no data, then you can have the most productive computers and the most productive people in the world, and it's not going to make any difference.
Nothing happens.
So business continuity, disaster recovery, disaster planning, those are all very important things. Backups, basically, backups.
Well, we're going to take a short break. When we come back, we'll get into some of the specifics of that and talk about if a business is out there looking for someone to help them with their computers, why would they want you?
Absolutely.
We're talking with Jeff Steele and Daniel French with CMIT Solutions of Seattle on Sound Advice.
Sound Advice returns in a moment on Business Radio 1300 KKOL. Now, back to Sound Advice on Business Radio 1300 KKOL.
I'm Susan Michaels.
And I'm Rick O'Brien, and this is Sound Advice.
And we're talking with Jeff Steele, who is president, and Daniel French, who is systems engineer with CMIT Solutions of Seattle. Now, what makes CMIT Solutions stand out over other IT companies out there? Why should a business call you over someone else?
Well, there are a ton of IT companies, especially in the Seattle area. And
when really? In Seattle?
Crazy, right?
Everybody's got a solution.
I know.
As we talk with people, there are a lot of people who have companies like us, our competitors. A lot of people, unfortunately, or frighteningly, as the case might be, employ their neighbor's teenage kid to come in on weekends and take care of their network or fix their computers. And that's definitely not a way.
And the reason is because the kid knows more than they do.
The kid knows more than they do.
And so he must know a lot.
Right. Well, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
What is one of the things that distinguishes us from other companies in the area is what we talked about earlier, and that's our bench depth. Yeah. And so, yes, you're dealing with a local company, and you've got a local relationship with that company, but we've got the larger CMIT business in the region for expertise, and then we've got, as I mentioned earlier, 800 consultants and technicians across North America that we can call on to help out. So we've got a tremendous amount of technical expertise to call on. The other thing that we do a little bit differently than other companies is the way we price our services. So most IT companies, IT support companies, will charge perhaps a small monthly retainer, and then when computers are breaking, they're charging you by the hour fixing those computers. Okay. So if you think about it, they're making money when your computers are broken, and that means they're incented to have computers broken so they can make more money. We've kind of flipped that on its head. We charge a fixed amount of money per month based either on the number of computers or the number of employees in the firm. And if you think about it, it actually costs me, as a business owner, costs me more to have somebody either on the phone or on site dealing with your computer problems. So I'm incented to keep your computers working all the time, which is what managed services is all about. So your interests in having computers working and my interest is having the computers working. Our interests are aligned. So that tends to resonate really, really well with our clients.
One kind of a real-world example of that, too, is let's say you're working with another company, they charge you $150 an hour. Computer breaks down. It's under whatever sort of managed services they might have going, but they're still going to charge you $150 an hour to fix it. For managed services computers under our plans, it could take us, would normally take us, usually between an hour, 2 hours to fix it. But let's say it's a complex problem, it takes us 4 to 5, 6 hours.
Sure.
It's no more cost to you than the monthly managed services cost, as opposed to these other folks who some of them might say, all right, well, it's 6 hours at $150 an hour, here's your bill.
There's no big surprises in that month that you have this big bill that you weren't expecting.
Absolutely.
Because you have a price, you're counting on it, you know that's there. If you have a disaster happen with your computers, you're not, oh no, I got this. Not only do I have a disaster, I got a disaster in my finances too.
Business owners love the fact that they can budget for it very easily. They know what their IT expenses are going to be on an annual basis. Yeah, absolutely.
So your focus then is on small to medium-sized businesses.
Correct.
And your focus mostly is in Seattle.
That's correct
right?
as well, yes. One of the things that we do, since we are, as I mentioned earlier, a franchise business, we do collective work with all of the other franchisees. And so if not only do we share resources, so if all of my resources are busy, I can call on one of the other companies to provide technicians to help out. And just like they can do the same for us. But we will look at who is the closest CMIT business to a particular client, and that's who will take the client.
Okay.
My guess is that sometimes a company has their computers doing what they do, and they have no idea of why they would want anybody coming in to do some things, and yet there's probably good reason for that. Could you give us an example or two of a situation like that where the company has, they're operating along with their computers, doing whatever their computers do at their company, and they're thinking, why would I want anybody to help me with this?
Productivity is a big key here, and some of our, I can talk in some very specific terms.
Yes.
We had one client, and the COO is the one who contacted us. And it was a company that had about 25 people, and he was the chief operating officer of the company, but he was also the guy who was constantly being called for fixing computer problems. And most of the time, he was readily admitting where those problems were over his head. So not only was he not able to fix them, but he was wasting his time trying to fix them.
A lot of time.
So if you think about what's happening when computer's down, the user is probably trying to fix the problem themselves, so they're kind of Googling things on the internet or talking to people, or they might be calling somebody to ask for some help. They're wasting time. That's an opportunity cost to a business.
Sure.
One of the things that our service brings to them is help desk services. So pick up the phone, call the help desk. Most of the time, our help desk will answer the phone right away. If not, we get back to them within an hour. But we encourage people to call the help desk early and often, and the reason for that is they're not wasting their time. It's not a lost opportunity cost. So we can get people up and working much more quickly than they can trying to Google a problem or trying to find Joe Blow down the hallway who might be able to fix things for them.
Yeah, so then their employees aren't sitting there twiddling their thumbs and not making any money for the company.
Okay.
One other thing about that, about just our computers are just humming along. We don't need to worry about IT support. Why do we care? It's because if you don't know what you don't know, and you don't know what the state of things are, and you don't know your ability to recover from things. So we talked to folks who were just humming along, everything was just fine. Servers then just crashed, and they didn't have backups. So they were just down, and they managed to jury-rig something together. But, if you don't have somebody who's looking after those things for you, then you really just have to ask yourself, what would be the cost to the business, whatever your business is, if I didn't have access to my applications, my data, whatever the thing is that you're in every day that you work on, and what would be the cost if I didn't have access to that for 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, a week? And that's really the major benefit to having a trusted IT partner is we keep an eye on that sort of thing.
And my guess is if your computers go down and you have no preparation ahead of time, it's going to take a week or more.
Yeah. In many cases it can.
Yeah. And one of the things we were starting to talk about before the break, and I'll just touch on it briefly, is the business disaster recovery and business continuity services. There's lots of statistics. I don't want to bore people with them. But if you're a small business and you have a catastrophic data loss, if you can't access your data within usually 2 to 3 days, the chances of you going out of business is extremely high.
Oh, really?
Right? And this happens all the time. People do not plan for data recovery.
Or sometimes they think, oh, I've got my neighbor's kid. He's taking care of my backups. And they get to that point and they find that their backups are 3, 4, 6 months out of date. And so, yeah, they may have some data, but their most recent stuff, the stuff that they're working on, the things that are going to allow them to grow, the stuff that matters, exactly, it's just up in smoke because they didn't have somebody keeping an eye on things on a daily basis, making sure things were working.
Wow. So these are really important things that small businesses don't necessarily think about.
Exactly.
Many times, yeah.
Are there any other things that that maybe they are just not on their radar, that they should have on their radar?
Well, there are a ton of things that people should be doing that are just kind of common sense things. And one of those things is many companies allow their employees to access data, usually email, from their mobile device. Do those employees have a password on their phone? Because if they don't, and they lose their phone, they leave it in a bar, or it gets stolen out of their car, or something of that nature, and it does not have a password or a lock screen on it, then whoever's stolen it now has access to company data.
Or even if it does have a password, sometimes they crack it, and if you don't have somebody who has the ability to centrally manage that and remotely wipe it and protect your company data, then even if you do have some of the basics like a passcode, you're still at risk for data loss or data breaches and people getting into things you wouldn't want them to get into.
Okay.
Wow. So phones are great for so many people, and you can use them for everything, but not such a good idea maybe for some of this.
So, I mean, that's one thing. Complex passwords, which we were talking about a little bit earlier, is another important thing. You don't want to have the same password for everything, because if one of your passwords gets compromised, you don't want all of your passwords to be compromised. So it's important to have complex passwords and have different passwords for things. We were talking a minute ago about backups, and people are going to say, I've got backups, it's not a big deal. Well, one of the things that we do as your managed services partner is we will make sure your backups work. So every month
you can actually restore your data.
We will pull files and folders down, and at least quarterly we will do a complete restore of your data to make sure that it is workable, and we have a working disaster recovery plan in place for you. So those are the types of things that we...
So you do a recovery drill.
We do a recovery drill, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Just to make sure. Now, is this all working, as they say, up in the clouds? Is that kind of how you do some of this, or
we do some of these things in the cloud. We do some of these things, locally.
Okay.
It kind of depends. Each company is a little bit different. Exactly what they need. Some clients are perfect examples to do everything in the cloud. Other clients, it makes sense not to do anything in the cloud. We are pushing email to the cloud pretty consistently across all of our clients.
Does it ever rain in the clouds?
Unfortunately,
not if you have somebody
it does.
looking out for you.
Yeah, you definitely need to have somebody who understands all this stuff. And I think you said it earlier. The kid knows more than the business owner. The business owner wants to be responsible for running their business. They don't think they shouldn't have to know technology. This is what we do every day.
Sure.
This is why you partner with a company like us, because we can come in, we can tell you what you need to do. We can provide. We've got one client right now. They're a relatively large company with their own IT manager, but he doesn't have the time or bandwidth to develop the proper policies and procedures. For instance, a bring your own device, a BYOD policy for mobile phones, and he's enlisting us to help deliver and author and deliver those types of things to the company. So those are the types of things that we do on a consulting basis for our clients, and it's all included as part of our service.
One thing we like to stress too is comprehensiveness. Having a comprehensive backup policy, not just local backups where you plug in a hard drive and you back things up to that, although that is an important component, but also cloud-based backups, so that in the event you have a theft or fire or something that destroys your office space, you have the ability to recover your business and you can keep going in another location. And along those lines as well, you need a comprehensive security strategy. We like to suggest that people put in place sort of a three-pronged strategy for that. An enterprise-grade firewall, enterprise-grade antivirus, which we provide through Webroot and managed services, and enterprise-grade anti-malware products, which we use Malwarebytes for. So having those three things allows you to have your data backed up, have things, or data backups as well would be number 4, but having those 4 things would allow you to have protection at the network level so that things don't get into your network in the first place. And then if things do get in, you have protection in the form of antivirus and anti-malware. And then worst case scenario, you can restore your data from backup.
Okay.
All right. So give us a couple of the most important tricks or tips that...
Maybe one quick one.
One quick one, then. Okay. That people need to be aware of in using computers.
Well, I think one thing, again, it goes back to the common sense thing. Be aware of your surroundings. So a lot of people will be in hotels. They'll be in coffee shops. And if you're in a public place and you're accessing public Wi-Fi, be very careful. Don't go into your banking site. Don't go into your medical records, things like that. And I've had so many people with this one. Be aware of who you're receiving things from. And if you have just gotten an email from somebody that you don't know and it's got an attachment saying, click this, please don't.
Don't click, no.
That is not a good thing.
Yes.
That is not a good thing.
If somebody wants to get a hold of you, how do they do that?
They can check on the internet for us, cmitsolutions.com/Seattle-downtown.
Or just CMITSeattle.com, I believe, goes
That's
to
true.
that.
Actually, we've got two. So CMITSeattle.com or CMITSolutions.com/Seattle-downtown. Or they can give us a call.
Yes, that number is?
206-457-4231.
Okay.
All right. Jeff Steele, Daniel French, thank you so much for being with us today on Sound Advice.
Thanks for having us.
We'll be back with more Sound Advice after this on Business Radio 1300 KKOL.